Our final little snapshot of the best out here, and some pretty interesting metagame shifts that you're probably going to see being adapted here. I'm betting 30% of you that have not smashed the living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash so you guys don't miss out more awesome content. This is going to be the last snapshot that we're going to be taking a look into the OCG here for Duelist Nexus here. Kind of showcasing the remainder of the back end here, the final developments that they had for their format, and some interesting events. So, New Year Carnival 2023 for the Philippines here has come and gone. Bystial Thunder Dragon, Purely Vanquishal, and Ishizu Tearlaments were your big representatives here. Now, keep in mind that the Bystial limitations, and actually Thunder Dragon Colossus still being in that sub-slot as potential one-ofs here, actually kind of gives this deck a chance to be viable. Hi, Chaos Angel. Outside of that, standard link climbing shenanigans, along with some other assets. Your side deck down here feels potentially very, very standard here. You're aiming to cover all of the bases that you normally wouldn't be able to. Purely here, this build has adapted the absolute necessities of the volcanic shells. I mean, you're either playing at this point in time volcanic shells, you're dedicating stuff to like Dark World engine. It's going to be whatever's going to generate the best advantage engine for you. And then, of course, you're bulking down on talents to take the opponent's stuff. And, of course, the power of Called by the Grave just to tear your opponent apart. Absolutely good stuff here. And then, gosh, I love the fact this deck gets to side the Vanity's Fiends. Vanity's Fiends, when you're playing against this deck, watching this be deployed is so good. Then we had Vanquish Soul down here. To the understanding that I have heard people talk about this, the deck is extremely mid-range, which means that you're going to have to know which times to trigger what, and then you're going to have to kind of bear in mind a lot of your combo pieces are going to be interacting at those points in time. So you're going to have to keep a very, very straight record of what needs to be chained to win, and which parts of the opponent's cards that you're going to need to interact with, because it is very mid-range control. So keep that in mind if you're playing this deck, or at least looking at this. I mean, do keep in mind we are playing Alpha Doggeron and the Divine Carnate in here, so you are going to be covering a lot of your standard bases with this. Hey, look, more anti-good cards. And then you really are bringing in, like, the absolute destruction here with Raigekis and so forth here. Okay. And then last but not least down here, you have what is the combination hybrid of the format here, where you are still seeing Tyr still be a functional deck, but it's literally glued together by the Ishizu package, obviously the Tearlaments Kashtira, the Shaddoll stuff. Globulb is helping this deck out, and then Chaos Ruler down here. These are all the bits and pieces that you need to see in order for this deck to maximize and be able to get off the ground. Once you have all of those missing pieces, or all of those bits and pieces able to work together, that's where you're seeing this deck actually shine right now. So, and of course, I kind of love the fact we have Santa Claus down here, Exceed Encores, and so forth as well. So a lot of the same standard stuff that you're used to seeing, but a lot of the glue to hold it together. We also had the China mainland version of this tournament, had 102 people here. Now, first and second is actually going to be your Grass Super Heavy Samurai Ishizu Vernal Emancipator. Say that 10 times fast. And then, of course, Super Heavy Purely and Ishizu Tearlaments down here really hold this together. Man, it's so nice to see the Zodiacs getting some love and affection here. So this is essentially, you're going to use Grass, you're going to play 60 cards, you're going to laugh all the way to the bank as you go through all of the multiple combo lines inside your Earth toolbox. And yes, they do have Smoke Grenade. Yes, Smoke Grenade is an absurdly busted card in this deck. It allows for some crazy interactions because they do get access to the power tool in here. So as you're doing all of this setup, all of this climbing, you know, to set up the key monsters, you're going to lose cards out of your hand. It's so good. And then, of course, Divine all the hand traps actually in the world. And then you can, you know, thrust into the barrier. I assume that we're doing the same thing here. Yep, there's a Smoke Grenade. Toggle into this. This build's playing a Dragite, which is fine. Side deck, also about the same. Okay, Super Heavy Samurai. For what you honestly expect for this deck, The Ancient Gear Infinitrack little splash package is honestly the thing that makes this deck go round. Obviously, you do get access like to Stardust Excel, and I see that they are playing the Big Train Synchro. A lot of important things to really consider for this deck, but those are going to be your big moving pieces. And then, of course, your tech choices down here in the side deck. The big advantages the OCG does have is they do have access to Scythe, which we don't really give two craps about, at least playing in terms of our variant. Purely down here, also sporting off the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation build. So you play like the Purely package in here, and then you play these to go search for your field spell. This is very interchangeable with like the Dark World stuff in Volcanic Shell, but this is definitely taken over as the more dominant build as of late. And then we're siding the Santa Claus, which we have seen once again turn into that big OCG tech trends out here. And then, of course, a Pointer's Herald for immediate spot removal. But everything that you're seeing amongst these decks is the ending real resulted trends they've been having. And I just wanted to kind of showcase that this is what we're heading on into. Now, I have a couple of other deck lists here to showcase for you guys. Out of this little sub-tournament, there were a few things that caught my attention that I wanted to showcase here. The first one, actually winning the event, was a MathMech list playing the Spirit package. Now, this is not something that I have seen explored by a majority of the player base yet, because most of them don't really, I guess, consider too much going down the additional packages here. Now, this build does play the G-Golem, the little Earth Golem Crystal Heart. See that we are doing a little bit more Firewall stuff. And yes, we are playing a Super Agent in here as well. Another target to bridge the gap, or, you know, a free special summon level 4. You have a lot of really cheesy things that you can do with this deck overall, so you got to kind of keep that in mind. Like MathMech, at least in terms of like developments and new stuff that it gets to add into its arsenal with the new Code Talkers, that those additional combo lines open up so many cool doors for the deck, and that's what you really do like to see in terms of developments here. Next up here, we do have Kashtira. Unfortunately, Kashtira has been stripped down so much from its former self. This deck is kind of on what I would call life support at this point in time. One Unicorn, one Fenrir, but it has proven that this deck's resilience has been some of the craziest that I have seen out here in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh history. With even all of the destruction that this deck has sit through on the Forbidden and Limited list, you can tell that Arise Heart has just turned into one of the best cards that this deck can actually go to. And a walking, talking, interactable Macrocosmo, where a lot of people have stopped citing for it, really does make that much of a difference in terms of metagame shifts. Outside of that, I mean, you're still going to be playing a lot of the same standard stuff that you're very used to. It's just going to kind of come down to developments, how you feel that you'll be able to handle the deck, and so forth. But I mean, this does give me hope if a ban list happens that this deck can still go strong. Next up is our next MathMech list. Now, this build is going to be focusing on a lot more of the Firewall cards. Now, for those of you that don't know, out of Cyberstorm Access, we do get a whole additional support line here for Firewall stuff. The new Firewall cards essentially kind of turn this deck into an entirely different creature. And then once you kind of start seeing those additional combo lines here and how this deck is kind of setting up here, it really is kind of crazy, actually. Being able to have access to the huge Firewall Dragon to blow your opponent out of the water is incredibly strong. I will definitely say that in terms of metagame shifts and things like that. I love, once again, what we're seeing here. So if you are very curious to see Firewall developments and some of the other ideas that they're doing, I hope that this is another one of those ideas that you will actually give some consideration to here. And then we also have Tearlaments here. Now, I swear, this deck is being held together by all bits and pieces of different engines. I will say that after, you know, as much devastation that this deck has gone through, that's still seeing it do its thing, you know, from the Ishizu package, to the Shaddolls, to the Unicorn Fenrir, to Search, to, you know, the rest of the Kashtira cards. This build is even putting, you know, Naturia Beast in here so that you can get things going off of the ground. I think that that's actually insane at the end of the day, that you can see that much actually flowing together here and actually have a workout. It's quite impressive. That is everything that I have for you out of the final breakdown for this. We will have Duelist Nexus ramping up for this week. So what do you guys think? Please, comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.